Ladies and gentlemen, there is a silent power in those who see clearly, not with judgment, not with anger, not with superiority, but with presence. When someone sees beyond surface behavior, beyond charm and charisma, into the subtle patterns of control and manipulation, that vision itself becomes a threat. Narcissists fear super empaths not because they fight them, but because they see them. And when clarity enters a room, illusion starts to tremble. Narcissists live in a world of carefully crafted masks. They shape identities, wear charm like armor, and use attention like oxygen. Their survival is rooted in deception, not only of others but of themselves. They create versions of reality that validate their sense of importance, superiority, and control. But when they encounter someone who cannot be fooled, who is not seduced by their stories, their image begins to crack. A super empath doesn't look with the eyes alone. They observe with the soul. They don't need proof in words, they feel truth in energy. While others may be captivated by a narcissist's confidence, the super empath notices the absence of humility. Where others see strength, the empath feels instability. Where there is laughter, they sense the underlying tension. This kind of inner vision is not learned from books or taught in lectures. It is the result of deep internal work, the purification of perception, and the discipline of stillness. It is in stillness that the chaos of the narcissist is revealed. Most people are too distracted to see clearly. The noise of their own wounds, needs, and insecurities distorts their vision. But the super empath has moved through that inner noise. They've sat in silence long enough to understand their own shadow, to see their own ego, to witness their own attachments. And in doing so, they've developed a kind of purity of presence that cuts through performance. When a narcissist meets someone who sees clearly, they do not feel admiration. They feel danger, because clarity is not emotional. It doesn't need to argue. It doesn't react. It simply is. It sees what is real, and it doesn't move. And that still gaze, that calm awareness, is what causes the narcissist's tactics to fail. They try to provoke guilt. It doesn't stick. They attempt to impress. It falls flat. They launch an emotional hook, but it's never taken. This kind of inner strength cannot be faked, and it cannot be manipulated. The narcissist senses they are no longer the one in control, that their tricks are being watched in real time, and more than that, being understood. That is where the fear begins, because to be seen is to be vulnerable, and narcissists build their identity on hiding their core wound, the deep fear that they are not enough. When someone can see that wound without being fooled by the mask, it creates a silent confrontation. What the narcissist fears most is not confrontation with others, but confrontation with themselves. The super empath becomes a mirror that reflects back the truth they are not ready to see. Not through aggression, not through words, but through being, through quiet, unwavering presence, through deep, grounded clarity that remains calm while the narcissist flails in confusion. This is what makes the empath powerful, their ability to stay centered while everything around them tries to pull them into chaos. A narcissist's control thrives in the fog. When people are unsure of themselves, easily influenced, disconnected from their intuition, they are easy to mold. But the super empath has burned away the fog. They've done the internal work. They've questioned their own patterns. They've faced their own pain, so they cannot be swayed by compliments, nor broken by criticism. They move with inner alignment. And that, to the narcissist, is terrifying, because when chaos meets clarity, it has two choices: transform or retreat. The narcissist, unwilling to transform, usually chooses retreat. But before they do, they try to reassert dominance. They may increase the pressure, intensify the manipulation, or turn to others to discredit the empath. But nothing they do can change what has already been seen. The truth cannot be unseen. And this truth, quiet, humble, and firm, becomes the most powerful force in the room. The super empath does not seek to expose. They do not aim to humiliate. They do not fight fire with fire. They simply remain, a calm presence, unmoved by falsehood, unattached to outcomes. They know who they are. They know what they feel. And in their stillness, the mask of the narcissist begins to dissolve, not because they forced it, but because clarity, in its purest form, always exposes chaos. Words can be rehearsed, smiles can be calculated, gestures can be copied, but energy, true energy, never lies. It cannot be edited, and it cannot be disguised for long. When a super empath enters a space, they are not simply listening to what is being said. They are attuned to what is not being said. They feel beneath the surface. They read intention, vibration, and alignment. And it is this silent sensitivity that makes them dangerous to the narcissist. The narcissist depends on a world where appearance is everything. Their words are carefully chosen to seduce, to dominate, or to confuse. They thrive in performance, where their charisma distracts and their storytelling manipulates. But energy does not participate in that game. The super empath, operating on an energetic frequency, does not respond to performance. They respond to presence, to truth, to the unsaid. When a narcissist encounters someone who feels their energy rather than their words, a subtle panic begins to arise. They sense that their usual strategies may not work. They cannot fully explain why, but they feel unseen in the way they are used to being seen, and deeply seen in a way they don't want to be. Their performance begins to falter, spoken, because the usual tools of flattery, guilt, blame, and charm fall flat against someone who is grounded in intuition. A super empath is not interested in appearances. They don't judge people by titles, clothes, or charm. They observe with inner stillness. And in that stillness, the narcissist's energy is loud. Not loud in volume, loud in inconsistency. There's a dissonance between what they say and what they project. But their words may be smooth, but their energy is anxious. Their gestures may be loving, but their energy is draining. Their tone may be confident, but their energy is insecure. The empath catches this dissonance immediately. They don't analyze it, they feel it. Energy communicates long before words do. When you've developed the ability to be deeply present, you no longer need to rely on logic to detect dishonesty. You sense it. The body stiffens, the stomach tightens, the room feels heavier, something feels off. And for a super empath, that feeling is enough. They trust it, even when they can't yet explain it. This is what unnerves the narcissist. Men, their entire persona depends on people believing the version of themselves they present. They feel in control when they can spin reality, when they can shape perception. But when the empath is in the room, that illusion is pierced without effort. Not spoken, the empath doesn't call them out directly. They don't need to. Their lack of reaction, their lack of awe, their quiet presence, it disrupts the narcissist's rhythm. The narcissist is always trying to create an energetic imbalance. They want to feel one step higher, one level more powerful. They crave validation and submission even if they disguise it as care or concern. But the super empath offers neither. They remain sovereign. They hold their energy close. They do not give it away in exchange for approval. And that frustrates the narcissist more than anything else, because they cannot manipulate someone who doesn't need anything from them. In this subtle energetic war, the empath wins not by fighting, but by not participating. Their strength is not in confrontation, but in discernment. They withdraw quietly. They disconnect with peace. They recognize the game and step off the board. This non-engagement, this refusal to play the narcissist's energetic game, is what truly disempowers them. It is important to understand this level of sensitivity is not weakness. It is wisdom. The super empath has likely spent years, maybe lifetimes, learning how to feel energy without absorbing it. They have made their own pain a doorway to compassion. They have studied themselves with brutal honesty. They lived not spoken. They have learned to remain soft without being naive. They've learned to stay open without being drained. That's what makes their presence so potent. They are not reactive. They are responsive. They do not chase love. They radiate it. And that kind of radiance cannot be deceived. The narcissist is used to people who want something from them. Love, approval, guidance, attention. But the super empath comes already full. They don't chase. They live, not spoken. They don't seek to be chosen. And that is what breaks the narcissist's cycle, because nothing confuses a manipulator more than someone they cannot control, someone they cannot trigger, someone they cannot emotionally dominate. The super empath is that person. They feel everything, but they are moved only by truth. When energy becomes the language, there are no lies, no masks, no ego games, only resonance or dissonance, connection or distortion, alignment or imbalance. And the super empath, through stillness, presence, and spiritual discernment, will always choose alignment, even if it means walking away, even if it means standing alone, because they know energy never lies. They live not spoken, and in that knowing they become immune to the narcissist's illusion.
Love is powerful, but love without attachment is unstoppable. This is the kind of love that super empaths carry, pure, unconditional, and sovereign. It is a love that gives freely but does not cling, a love that sees clearly but does not bind, a love that heals yet refuses to be controlled. And for the narcissist, this kind of love is terrifying. The narcissist seeks control disguised as connection. They view love as a transaction, a tool to manipulate, a strategy to dominate. Their version of love is not about seeing someone, it's about using someone. It's about extracting attention, admiration, obedience. To them, love is only valuable when it gives them power. And that's why the love of a super empath cannot be tolerated, because it does not feed the narcissist's ego, it exposes it. The super empath loves deeply, but their love is rooted in presence, not possession. They do not fall in love with illusions. They fall in love with souls. They see people, not projections. And while their love is compassionate, it is also discerning. They understand that love is not about holding on. It is about honoring the truth of the connection, even if that truth leads to separation. To the narcissist, this is unacceptable. They fear being seen and not being needed. They fear being known and not being controlled. When the super empath loves them without attachment, the narcissist cannot figure out where their power lies. They can't hook the empath with guilt. They can't manipulate with praise. They can't bait them with withdrawal. Because the super empath isn't afraid of loss, they've already made peace with it. That inner freedom disarms the narcissist's entire strategy. Most people who encounter a narcissist end up trapped in cycles of overgiving and emotional confusion. They confuse manipulation for intimacy. They believe that love means sacrifice, that devotion requires pain. But the super empath has learned, often the hard way, that real love does not ask them to betray themselves. And so their love becomes wise, it becomes whole, it becomes clean. They give not because they are empty, but because they are full. They stay not because they fear loneliness, but because the connection aligns with their truth. And when it no longer does, they do not beg, chase, or crumble. They grieve, they release, they walk away with peace. That kind of departure, silent, strong, and graceful, is what haunts the narcissist the most. Because they expect collapse, they expect obsession, they expect to be needed, and when none of that happens, they are left to face their own emptiness. The love of a super empath is healing because it asks for nothing in return. It uplifts but never entangles. It nurtures but never demands. It supports but never controls. The narcissist, who is accustomed to creating chaos to feel significant, is left confused in the face of this kind of love. They try to create tension, the empath does not respond. They try to provoke jealousy, the empath does not react. They try to disappear to create fear, the empath does not chase. This balance, to love without needing, is what breaks the narcissist's pattern. Because without attachment, there is no fear to manipulate, there is no wound to exploit, there is no ego to inflate. The super empath has done the work. They have met themselves in the dark. They have touched the pain of abandonment, betrayal, and loneliness, and they have survived. Their love is no longer born out of longing. It is born out of awareness, This is not coldness, it is clarity. It is the difference between giving and leaking, between staying in truth and staying in fear. The super empath chooses truth. Every time, and in doing so, they become immune to emotional games. The narcissist cannot twist their love into submission because it is not tied to external validation. It flows from within and returns to within. To love without attachment is the rarest strength. It means holding space for someone's soul without gripping their hand. It means seeing someone's darkness without absorbing it. It means standing in your own light, even as you offer warmth to another. And when a narcissist encounters this, a love that does not need them, a love that does not bow, they are forced to confront a reality they cannot control. In the end, the super empath does not love less. They love cleaner. Their boundaries are not walls. They are invitations to mutual respect. Their presence is not desperate, it is devotional. Their goodbye is not bitter, it is sacred. And this kind of love, free, wise, unshakable, is the one thing the narcissist can never own, never break, and never forget. Stillness is not silence, it is not weakness, it is not avoidance. Stillness is power under control, a deep internal equilibrium that remains unshaken in the face of chaos. For the super empath, stillness is not just a response. It is a weapon, a shield, and a sanctuary. And it is in this stillness that the narcissist cycle begins to break. The narcissist thrives in noise, emotional noise, psychological noise, relational noise. They create confusion, provoke arguments, stir insecurities, and manipulate perceptions. Their strength comes not from truth, but from distortion. In environments where people are reactive, unstable, or searching for validation, the narcissist can reign. But when they encounter a super empath anchored in stillness, the entire dynamic begins to unravel. Stillness is awareness without interference. It is the ability to observe without absorbing. It allows the empath to see patterns unfolding without being pulled into them. Instead of reacting to insults, guilt trips, or emotional bait, the super empath remains grounded. They do not rush to defend themselves, they do not scramble to be understood, and they do not flinch at withdrawal. In that space of non-reaction, the narcissist's power begins to dissolve, because the narcissist needs reaction to feel real. They depend on being the center of attention, whether through praise or blame, love or conflict. Any form of energy directed at them reinforces their sense of importance. But when they receive stillness, not apathy but deep non-reaction, it confuses them. Their usual scripts no longer work. Their accusations don't ignite chaos. Their charm doesn't create longing. The cycle they've repeated with others begins to fail. The super empath's stillness is not passive, it is the result of inner mastery. It comes from having met their own emotions, their own wounds, their own impulses. They've already experienced the chaos within, and through that experience, they've developed the strength to sit in discomfort without losing themselves. So when chaos appears outside, it no longer holds the same threat. They can watch the narcissist attempt to trigger, manipulate, or provoke, and yet remain unmoved. This is not detachment in the cold sense. It is clarity. The empath doesn't need to win the argument. They don't need to prove their worth. They don't need to expose the narcissist. They already know the truth, and in that knowing, they've found peace. This inner peace creates a barrier that narcissistic behavior cannot penetrate. The narcissist, sensing their influence weakening, may escalate. They may become louder, colder, or more erratic. But every escalation only highlights their lack of control. Because what truly threatens them is not confrontation, it is irrelevance, and stillness makes them irrelevant. Not through revenge, not through shouting, but through absence, the absence of engagement, the absence of fear, the absence of need. When a super empath stops playing the game ends. The narcissist cannot compete with silence that comes from power. They cannot manipulate someone who no longer needs external validation. They cannot control someone who refuses to be moved. And while others may interpret the empath's stillness as indifference or weakness, the narcissist knows it for what it is, the beginning of the end. This stillness is not easily attained. It often comes after great pain. The empath may have once been reactive, emotional, and desperate for love. They may have tried for years to fix, help, or change the narcissist, but through every betrayal, every manipulation, and every awakening, they grew. They stopped trying to be understood and started understanding themselves. And from that self-awareness, stillness was born. It is in this space that the empath reclaims their power. They no longer give energy to what drains them. They no longer respond to false urgency or emotional games. They move deliberately, speak only when necessary, and act only from truth. Their presence becomes centered, calm, and quiet, and yet profoundly disruptive to the narcissist's system. In stillness, the empath begins to heal, and as they heal, they stop repeating cycles. They stop attracting the same chaos. They stop internalizing blame. The clarity that stillness brings allows them to make different choices, to set firmer boundaries, to walk away without explanation, to say no without guilt. This is what breaks generational patterns. This is what ends toxic cycles. The narcissist does not know how to respond to stillness because it offers no foothold. It gives no attention, no drama, no emotional currency. It is not empty, it is complete. And in that completeness, the narcissist is exposed. Not by confrontation, but by contrast. The louder they become, the clearer their chaos sounds. The more they try to provoke, the more isolated they appear. And the super empath, seated in stillness, becomes untouchable. This is why stillness is feared, because it cannot be used. It cannot be hijacked. It cannot be manipulated. It is a form of resistance without violence, a form of rebellion without noise, a form of power without ego. And for the super empath, it is the final step in breaking free, not just from the narcissist, but from every illusion that ever kept them bound.